On ABC Radio Queensland, my name's Alex Chambers. In Townsville, Cairns and Longreach, you're all on 27 degrees at the moment. Mount Isa is on 28 and the Whitsundays is on 26 degrees. Well, it's been a few weeks since we've talked all things technology with Alex Zaharov-Reutt from IT Wire. He's been doing a little bit of globe-tropping. He's been to Huawei's launch of their new phones, and which have some of the most advanced cameras. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning, Alex.
So you've been globe-trotting. How's that been for you?
Well, obviously, it's always nice to be able to go overseas. I was in Paris for the launch of the Huawei P30 series, and their P30 Pro is arguably the best Android smartphone in the world with the best cameras.
Well, what makes this one of the best Android smartphones around?
Well, what it has is 4 cameras on the back. Now, we've spoken about phones before with 5 cameras, and when you count the cameras on the front, you can have lots of different cameras, but it's the type of camera that really matters. And what we have here is not only do we have a 40 megapixel sensor, which is what they had with the Mate 20 Pro last year, but this time around, they've been able to change the sensor. So instead of being red, green, blue, and RGB, which is the standard sort of sensor pixel types that they've used for decades, this is now using RYYB, and Y stands for yellow, and that has a greater wavelength than green, so it can capture more colors, 40% more light is what it's supposed to be able to capture. And Huawei's had to change its algorithms to cope with this, but it's the first time that this sensor's been changed in decades, and that is giving you better quality photos. But that's just one of the things it can do. Another thing that it can do is the widescreen, wide-angle photos, which we also saw last year. But probably the most striking feature is the new 5 times optical zoom. Now, this is using... normally, if you look at the front and back of your phone, that's the amount of space they have to put in all those different lenses. Well, the 5 times optical zoom is just too big to place into the tiny space between the front and back of your phone. So what they've had to do is angle the lens 90 degrees, and using a prism, they're able to get the light to bend 90 degrees and have this lens go up the phone rather than between the front and the back. And so you get a 5 times optical zoom, which beats the 3 times optical zoom that Huawei had with its Mate 20 last year, and the 2 times optical zooms that you see on iPhones and on Samsungs. And by combining 2 of the lenses, they can get a 10 times hybrid zoom, and they can go all the way up to a 50 times digital zoom. So it is astonishing the amount of zooming that you can do with this phone. And during the keynote, they were even able to show us a zoomed-in image of the moon taken with the phone, and you could see the craters on the moon. Now, I've taken pictures of the moon before on various smartphones, and I just end up with a white, blurry disk of light, even when the moon is huge in the sky. So I'm waiting for the new moon to come, or the full moon to come later this month, and I'm going to be testing it out for myself. But I have taken a number of photos where I show people, I say, look, here's a photo in 0.6 widescreen. So it's a very wide photo. And then we have the 1x, which is the standard sort of, mode that all cameras go into it by default. Then I go to 5 times, to 10 times, and then 50 times. And it really is quite incredible to see. And when you're at the 50 times, of course, the camera is wobbling a bit. It's asking you to hold it steady. But we have optical image stabilization and artificial intelligence stabilization built in. So it's arguably the most advanced camera that can fit in your pocket and connect to all of your Facebooks and Instagrams and Snapchats.
Yeah, now it has arguably probably the best camera that a smartphone has had. But does the mobile phone, because we have to remind ourselves we are talking about a mobile phone, does it have any other things that's leading the market in a way? I don't think all mobile phones really just do is make calls the same amount of way, but no. Apart from the camera.
Yeah, well, they're pocket computers of, people live their entire lives on their phones. But I've seen people, young adults using Facebook on their phone, and then when they go to a computer, they know what to do, but they're not familiar with it as much as they are with doing it on their phone, because that's their primary computing interface.
How big are the phones? Are they quite a large, chunky phone?
It's similar in size to the Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus or the iPhone XS Max. So it's got a big 6.4-inch OLED screen with the curved edges like you'll see on a Samsung. But it's just slightly, it's not as wide. So it's still quite, it's almost as wide, but it's slightly easier to hold in the hand. You do have the face recognition camera. Now, this is not using the infrared face recognition system that we see on the iPhone 10 series and on the Mate 20. It is just using a single camera to to recognize your face. Now, I've been able to take a photograph of my face on an iPhone, hold it up against a Samsung, and it warns you. It says, hey, if you use your face without this infrared system that Apple has, then you can unlock the phone with a photo, or you could. And I was able to do that with the Samsung, but try as I might, and I've tried very hard, I haven't been able to use the same photo or other photos to unlock the Huawei P30 Pro. So, I mean, it's very convenient to be able to unlock your face, but if someone could just get a photo of you and hold it in front of your phone, then it's not so secure. So I haven't as yet been able to do that on the Huawei. It's got an in-screen fingerprint reader as well, which is supposed to be 30% faster than the one they introduced last year in the Mate 20 Pro. The notch, because it doesn't have this infrared system, it's just a dewdrop sort of notch, and it's very easy to hide the notch by turning that top section of the screen black. And that top section will also have things like the time and the Wi-Fi signals and other icons. And I noticed on the Samsung S10 Plus, which has the two cameras, you can hide the notch as well, but it's a much bigger black bar. The phone can also do the reverse wireless charging that we saw last year with the Mate 20 Pro. So, I mean, many of these features are from the Mate 20 Pro, but they've been brought along. You've got the same 7-nanometer processor, which is the most advanced sort of processor you can get. Only Apple has one that is using the same sort of technology. It's got an infrared remote control sensor. Samsung used to have that years ago, but they got rid of it. But the other day, somebody was asking me to, change whether my phone could change the TV channels. We were actually in a club, and it was a personal TV, so it wasn't one that was being, that the whole club could see. And I said, yeah, and I opened up my phone, brought up the remote control app, tapped on the Sony TV thing, went through the little setup procedure, and bang, I've got a remote control that can control TVs, DVD players, Blu-ray players, air conditioning units. It's quite handy. The phone itself actually also can operate, it'll come later this year, as a key for if you have some of the latest Audi cars. Now, obviously, you have to be wealthy enough to have an Audi car.
Yeah.
But, it can unlock and start the car. And they're going to have more cars coming later on in the year.
So, Alex, how wealthy do you have to be to afford this phone?
Well, there's two versions. There's the P30 and there's the P30 Pro. The P30 is like a lighter version. It's only got 3 cameras. It only does 3 times optical zoom. That one's $1,099. The P30 Pro is $1,599. Now, that is about $700 or $800 less than the most expensive iPhone, which admittedly has double the capacity. The Huawei P30 Pro has 256 gig of storage and 8 gig of RAM, whereas the 512 gig iPhone is 2,369. And that's double
that's
storage.
expensive, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've got one of those, but I had to buy it on a Telstra plan because it was cheaper to buy it over 2 years. So, but look, there's a lot of competition out there, and every phone manufacturer obviously wants you to buy their phone. I mean, I'm playing with the Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus, and it's the best phone Samsung has ever made. But Huawei has really tried to come out and beat the market. So they, instead of having a speaker grill at the top of the phone, like if you look at your phone now, you'll see there's a little speaker grill at the top. Well, they've put a little magnet acoustic device under the screen, which vibrates the screen, and you put your ear next to the screen, and you can hear this sound. And so they didn't have to have a separate speaker hole. And so that saves a bit of space on the top of the phone as well. So
now,
you've got waterproof, you've got big battery.
Is it shockproof, shatterproof? What if you drop it on the ground?
Well, it comes with a case in the box, but clearly it's less of a case that is for hard shocks. There's a company called Tech 21, which makes smartphone cases for Samsungs and iPhones and all the different major brands. And they've announced they've got a case for the Huawei P30 Pro as well. And that's important because you want a case that can protect you with Tech 21's tagline of drop after drop. Now, one of the new features that this Tech 21 company launched for their smartphone cases, and they did this a few weeks ago with the Samsung cases, and they've done it as well with the Huawei P30 and P30 Pro cases, and that's introduced a thing called BioCoat, which is an antimicrobial feature inside the case that kills 99% of bacteria within 2 hours. So it's
well, with the amount of people that take their mobile phones to the bathroom with them, that's probably a good thing. Alex, I've got to ask you as well. Huawei's no stranger to controversy. I mean, how successful will this phone be, considering even the U.S. Department of Justice charged their chief financial officer Meng Wanzhou, that's the daughter of the company's founder, with fraud. Australia cancel their contract for the 5G wireless communications just because they're worried about, I guess, spying in general. How successful do you think they'll be? Are people wary of Huawei?
Well, look, they came out with financial reports about a couple of weeks ago that showed that they made over $100 billion in revenue. I mean, that's not profit. But despite all of these setbacks in terms of, government blockages in the West, they've still managed to do very well. There's still a huge part of the world, all the other countries that require 5G technologies. And it's very difficult. Well, you cannot buy a Huawei phone from any of the carriers in America, but that doesn't stop Americans from importing them. Look, Edward Snowden spoke about how the NSA was hacking into various American companies and stealing information. I mean, I guess I would be trusting the American government more than I'd be trusting the Chinese government. But Huawei itself says, look, people say that we're controlled by the Chinese government, but, if we're caught doing anything and giving information to the Chinese government, well, nobody will trust us. So, look, I guess, maybe from a nation-state point of view, you would be worried, and that's why we've seen the Americans and the Australians blocking it. We've got people like New Zealand saying, the Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, reportedly, according to articles I've read in ITY, the site that I write for, that she has said, well, we're not blocking Huawei. You've got the Europeans who are saying to the Americans, well, show us some proof. I mean, as an individual, I don't think you've got anything to worry about. If you're a government, it's probably a different story. But individuals don't have anything to worry about. And it then comes down to who's got the best technology at the right price. And it also depends where your loyalties lie. And, I wouldn't have any, personally, I wouldn't have any worries whether it's a Huawei or a Samsung or an Apple. I don't think that I'm going to be spied on by, the Chinese government. And I don't think people have to worry about that. And clearly Huawei's, pricing its smartphones at a competitive price because they want people to buy them. And, you don't go to all this trouble to introduce class-leading technologies if you don't expect anybody to buy them. One thing I forgot to mention is that the camera also has an unbelievable night mode. I mean, there's a if you go to ity.com, you can see my article about it. It's there on the front page if you scroll down a bit. And there's a keynote that must be seen to be believed. The amount of things that this phone can do, it's all sort of listed there. But one of the features is the ability to take colourful, bright photos almost in the pitch black of night. Now, the Mate 20 from last year had this capability with a thing called night mode. The P30 Pro has a night mode as well, but its standard camera can also take arguably better night mode photos than the night mode itself. And I've shown people photos taken in near darkness, and it's just astonishing that you can turn night into day. So Huawei's the tagline for this phone is rewrite the rules of photography.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be a great device, especially for people who consider themselves a bit of a photographer. I'm actually waiting for the mobile phone that can cook me dinner and also take out the rubbish. When that will happen, I don't know, Alex. But moving on, you've looked at a few other things this week, and one that I just want to get through. We don't have too much time left, but it's about GPS systems and for standalone ones that could cause some headaches for people. Now, what's the news with that?
Well, there's been 2 GPS clock resets over the past 20 or so years. GPS units use some sort of weird method of week-by-week systems. It's kind of strange. And there's on Saturday there was a reset of this system. Now, my relatives have some older TomTom GPS units, and they got an email saying, hey, you better update this weekend. And so I helped them. We logged in over TeamViewer. They updated their devices. One of the devices wasn't getting map updates anymore, but it still received this fix. If you're using GPS devices, not on phones, but the standalone units, you should have received an update as well. If not, and if your GPS device is acting weirdly today and not working properly, go to the manufacturer's website, download the update software, update the GPS, and if there's a fix, it'll be there. And if not, it might be time to buy a new GPS device or use the one on your phone.
Yeah, most people are using their phone nowadays, so that's an interesting thing. And also, Alex, I just want to ask you a little bit more. You mentioned TeamViewer there. Now, for people who might not know what TeamViewer is, you said you helped your family out via TeamViewer. Can you just explain what TeamViewer is?
Sure. It's a program that you download and that they download. They give you a code and an ID number and a code, and you type it into your copy of TeamViewer on your computer, and then you have control over their system. So you can move the mouse on your side. You can see their desktop. You can click on things for them. You can troubleshoot for them. You can help them out. And it's a really, really handy system. It's been around for years. It's free for personal use.
If you do use it to connect to somebody's computer in an office, though, TeamViewer will know that you've connected to a business network, and it'll say, hey, please only use this for personal use. Otherwise, it imagines that you're doing tech support as a business, and they want you to pay, and it's quite expensive to pay for it. But if you need to help, Aunt Mary or Uncle Jack or your parents or kids or whoever it might be, whether they're using a PC or a Mac, you can download the software. With Android phones, you can actually control an Android phone completely, even clicking on things for people. But with iPhones, you can only see a screen recording that the software sets up for you, and then the person on the other end has to tap. But even with that iPhone, you can help people and see what's on their screen. And so this ability to do remote control tech support is extraordinary, and it's free. And if you're technologically inclined and you've got to help family and friends, this can be much easier than driving to their place and helping them out that way, or blindly having them be your mouse clicker or finger tap.
Yeah, it sure is. I've used TeamViewer before to help out friends and family, and it is a great application because it means that if they're having trouble with anything on their computer, they can open it up and you can show them exactly what to click on and do. The only hurdle is trying to get them to install TeamViewer to start off with sometimes.
That can be tricky, yes, but normally that's relatively straightforward. But once you're used to it, you can guide them. But yeah, it saves them having to try and describe things or describe boxes that you know that they're not describing it properly, and it really works. And you can even use your phone to control somebody else's computer. And if the other person is worried, they can easily click an X on the screen and cancel the whole remote control session at any time. So people have control, and and obviously when you're not using TeamViewer, you just turn it off. If you're worried about hackers, which isn't really a worry.
Alex Zaharov-Reutt is a technology writer for IT Wire, joins us every Monday for a chat about technology. Thanks for your time this morning, Alex, and you have a great week.
You too. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.